this is not another cold video, but we're going to address a question, probably one of the most frequently asked questions on this channel over the last year has been about the sharpening jig for the chisels. I was talking to one of the viewers tonight for a couple hours on the phone. Hello, Tim. And he was asking about the jig as well, so I decided I got home kind of late to get to work on the barn, even though the weather isn't too bad for it. It's in the 20s. But so I thought, you know, I need to make a new one anyway. That other one's getting a little worn out because I leave it outside. I don't, you know, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I don't even have to show it any love. That's just what it is. But so anyway, it's probably about the easiest, quickest, simplest sharpening jig you're going to make or you're going to find. I have not found one easier to use or one that's easier to make. So, without further ado, we're not going to sit here and talk for 10 minutes at you like we have in the last couple videos. Let's get to work on making a new jig. And please, do not tell my wife that I'm sitting at the kitchen table tonight because I'm too lazy to go outside and do it. Don't tell her I'm sitting there making a mess. I will have it cleaned up by morning before she gets out of bed because that's just the way we roll around here and I don't want to die. So, anyway, here we go. Alright, this thing is super simple to make. Like I said, it's probably going to be the easiest sharpening jig you have ever made. There's really nothing to it at all. All you need, a few screws, a drill. I've got a, is this 2-inch hole saw. Your chisels, you're going to want your chisels to hand when you do it because you're going to notice. And I left my toolbox open outside on accident, and look at that. I've done it one other time before and had the same results. They clean up really easy, but boy, do I piss myself off when I do that because you go to I like my tools nice for this stuff. I really, oh, that irritates me I did that. But we're not here to talk about rust on the chisels. That's going to happen, I suppose. But, so for this style of jig, its only shortcoming is you're going to need different jigs for each chisel. If you notice, these are different lengths. This is important when you're making this. And we'll get into that. You'll see why here in a couple minutes. This is like a 10-15 minute jig to make. There's absolutely nothing to this. It's beautiful is what it is. So, we're going to do the one because the 2-inch is the one I use the most. That's the one that's worn out, so we're going to make that one tonight. And, oh, that rust drives me nuts. I have no idea how bad that drives me nuts. I feel like an ass every time I do something stupid like that. But anyway, enough of that. We've all done it. So, we're going to work on one for the 2-inch. That's the one I use the most. A lot of times the 1.5-inch chisel I usually end up touching up by hand, but the bigger the chisel, the harder it is to sharpen. And at the end of the video, I have something special to show you that a viewer sent. In another video, I have some older footage of a gift from a friend who's also a viewer. That's a really special gift, and that that deserves its own moment. So, and so does this one as well. But there's a good story behind the second one I mentioned. But anyway, so. I'm not going to go out on the back porch here and cut this so I don't wake the 2-year-old up. That's probably still awake up in a crib. But here we go. All we're going to do, all we have to do here, just pick a spot, any spot at all. You don't have to square both ends. You only need one flat cut. You don't need to measure anything. You just line it up. So, alright, I'm going to go out, I'm going to cut this, we'll be right back. You know, these boards are wide enough, I think I can squeeze both into this. That actually might make it quite easy. So, I cut this a little bit shorter just so it's a little bit easier to handle. Sawdust on the table, every kitchen table should have sawdust on it, right? So, all you have to do, so I've got my 2 ends, they don't even have to be square, you don't have to really, and I'll show you why in a minute. All I'm going to do, I'm going to use the regular drill though because that impact is loud and I probably wouldn't survive if I wake that baby up. Of course, not really baby anymore, toddler. Boy, they get big quick, I'll tell you what. Get big too quick. Alright. I may not do any cutting on this one like the last one. But you guys able to see what we're doing a little better. You can kind of get an idea how long this really takes, even between my rambling and now I do put a good amount of screws in these, probably a lot more than I need to. And this idea, if you're new here, and you haven't been around for the last year, this idea came from the forestry forum. A viewer on there, or a viewer, yeah, I think it in terms of YouTube again. One of the members on forestry forum, name of Dave Shepard. Hi again, Dave, if you're watching. This was actually something that I saw in an old post that he had. And I believe, if memory serves me correctly, this is a jig that Jack Soban uses. And if you don't know who Jack Soban is, he is one of the people very much responsible for the resurgence of timber framing in this country. Now, here's the easy part. Well, kind of easy. Alright, so we have this piece. We have to figure out where we're going to locate this hole in there. And I'm going to have to adjust that bit. Yeah, a little bit. That's going to wander all over me anyway. Cool, just a flathead. So, if I hold this thing against the side, I can get an idea where it's going to rest. You tip that bevel up until it's flat. Now if I just go and line that up right there, say I just do it right there, it's going to be wrong because we're not accounting for the stone. So what I do, I put the stone on there, and you got to get right down to it, and a little bit of eyeball involved. Kind of get this right where you need it. Now this part is the most critical part because this is the part where you're going to get your angles right. Something that bears paying attention to when you go to do this. I want the socket of this chisel to rest against the hole, the bottom of the hole. I don't want this, I don't want it back here. I want it right there is where I want that to have to rest. So you want to eyeball it and mark it to the handle of the chisel where it meets the socket. That way when you go to put this through the hole, it's not going to push back. It holds it in there really well. So I have a mark. Remember, this is the bottom of the hole. We're just going to square off a little bit. And it doesn't really matter where you go with it. Instead, you could just eyeball it a little bit. I'll come in 3 inches. Now, like I said, this board's wide enough. We're going to make this a twofer because that just makes more sense, you know. Less jigs kicking around. So I'll just label that 2-inch chisel. Now we're going to do the same thing with the 1.5-inch chisel. Remember, this is shorter, so the hole is going to line up differently. Again, Get your bevel where you need it to be. Come on. And what's neat, when you're using a jig to sharpen your chisels, you get a different appreciation for how you hand filed before. Or how you hand sharpened before. Because you probably think all these years, you're saying to yourself, oh, I could freehand that. Never been a problem before. But when you get a jig made and you're actually sharpening on that jig, you'd be amazed at how far off you actually find that you are when you're freehanding them. Because what'll happen is you're going to shine it up. You're going to see the mark where the stone hits it, and then you're going to have dull spots where the stone hasn't hit it yet. And it's kind of neat because I'd always been a freehand kind of a guy. And I still do quite a few of the edge tools that way. But it's kind of nice to have the accuracy of a jig. Let's bring this out. Let's go 2.5 inches from the other side, or 3 inches from this side. And this is going to be for our 1.5 inch chisel. Now this has its limitations. I don't think you're going to take a slick and make one of these jigs very well. Always keep a screwdriver squirreled away in the house, sometimes 100 of them. But, so I'm not going to do this inside because I don't want to make a bunch of noise. But I'm going to take this out. I've got to get this hole saw lined up so it's on the bottom. And it doesn't matter if you're lined up this way or not. You just want to make sure that the hole saw is where you want it. Ooh, I don't know what got on here, but don't tell my wife. So, I'm going to drill these holes and I'll be right back. Alright, so 2 holes drilled in this. Higher one for the 2 inch, lower one for the 1.5 inch. And what we're going to do, let's throw the 1.5 inch on here and just see if we lined everything up right. Because remember, if you did not line this up right, you are not going to have the right bevel on your chisel. And see if I can get you a closer shot. See if I can get you a better shot. See that all right? Focus, damn you. Focus. Dogs think I'm talking to them. I guess I'm going to have to back off a little bit here. Stellar camera work tonight, huh? Oh, come on. Well, it's hard for me to see. You see how that... Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This thing's not wanting to focus. I should yell at it like AVE does on his channel. But you see how flat that chisel is on the stone? That's what you want. And we'll go up a little bit. This right here. Get you a little closer here. See how that socket just goes right against there? And that chisel bevel is perfectly flat on that stone. That's what you're looking for. That's what's going to give you the accuracy in the jig. Put you back in the tripod. Now, a lot of you have been with the channel for a while. Okay. A lot of you who have been with the channel for a while have seen me do this many times, but there's a lot of new folks out there, and I've had so many of you ask me about this jig. I mean, like I said, I've had more questions on this, I think, than anything, just about anything. But once you have the chisel in there, it's lined up, it's just as easy as rocking it back and forth. That socket moves against there, it's pressed where it has to be, and that's all you do. That's it. She's gold. And we get a good, and I can see where I've gotten off. You can see where I've gotten off hand filing this before. Or hand filing. I don't file my chisels, hand sharpening it, freehanding it. And you can pick it up really fast when you do that. And you'll also tell pretty quickly if your chisel angle's off on there, because you're going to get an uneven bevel when you're doing it like this, or any jig. So you might be shining up down here, but you're not hitting the bevel back here. So that's just something to be aware of and watch for when you're doing it. So what I like to do, because even from the factory, these are Henry Taylor chisels out of Sheffield, England, but even out of the factory, this bevel here was not perfect. It was not it was uneven. So that's something, even if you're buying brand new chisels, it doesn't mean that they're junk chisels. It doesn't mean that they're not made well. A lot of times, you know, you will have to tweak the edge to get it how you like it. So you see how well that fits? It just goes right on there. Perfect. No, I'm not going to go through the whole sharpening rigmarole tonight, because who has time for that? But I can see I do have quite a bit of work to do on that edge, and that's my own fault. Now this one here, this one definitely needs a touch-up. So the stone, I'm going to sit at a different spot. There again, before you move the chisel on this thing, check that. Make sure you are flat on that stone the way you're supposed to be. And we are. That's all you do. You don't have to sit there and Hercules it. You don't have to push down real tight. Just gentle, short strokes back and forth. Once in a while, turn your stone around. Because when you are doing it like this, of course, these stones are a lot more, this is a lot tougher as far as wear goes than like a Japanese water stone, which those are nice, those are really nice. But this will last a lot longer doing it like that. What I do when I want to bring a chisel back, I'll take it to, or a chisel. When I want to bring a stone flat, I don't use a dressing stone on them. I find like, I like to scrub down my table saw top once in a while, so I'll just spray it down with a lot of like WD-40, and then I'll just take the stone and work it. That flattens a sharpening stone out for me better than anything I've ever found. But anyway, there's that. And that is how you make the sharpening jig that everybody's been so curious about. And I've got some work to do on these now, getting them cleaned up again, getting the rust off. Oh, I irritated myself. That's how it goes though. So, before we go tonight, before we leave you alone, and by the way, this took what, 15-20 minutes to make that? Maybe not even. Somebody made a mess on here. All right, let's get to the unveiling You ready for this? I want to thank our viewer Nicholas. You know who you are. Nicholas decided that he must have been tired of watching me pare down all those joints with a 2-inch chisel. So Nicholas had a spare timber framing slick. Look at the size of that thing. That is awesome. And so, if you're not familiar with a slick, and I have never owned one, so this is my first one, which is stinking awesome. So if you're not familiar with how a slick works, it's pretty much works like a hand plane. And what's nice about it, it's just big, wide, and it's heavy. So let's see if I can gouge the kitchen table. The kids have already destroyed this table. So when you're using a slick, it just lays flat, and it's so big, it stays flat, just like it works just like a hand plane. But you get so much leverage. You've got the handle back here. That is beautiful. It's also neat. It's very slightly curved on top. You know, it's kind of neat. So we're going to sharpen this guy up, and I'm really hoping to get some use out of this weekend. Because if the weather holds out, I have queen posts to cut and top plates to cut. And I really need to get back on the project. It's been pretty slow the last month and a half on this barn. We have not made much for progress. But this is going to be awesome, and I cannot wait to use it. So, anyway, I just want to thank Nick. That was really nice of you to send that up, and this will be cherished and treasured, and it will be taken anyway. I hope you guys find this jig helpful. They're really simple to make. It's pretty self-explanatory. Takes 15-20 minutes to do, but that jig right there will give you a really excellent bevel every time. When I'm done when I'm done using this, you've seen how I test my chisels. If it can't shave the hair off my arm, it's too dull. You know, and I tell you what, when you're doing your timber frames or any woodworking, dull tools are dangerous. They're horrible to use, and it can ruin an entire project for you, just the experience-wise. You know, when you're doing certain things, you want to enjoy it. If you're doing a hobby like woodworking, or you're building a timber frame shop or anything like that, keeping your tools in good shape, keeping a sharp edge on them, it just makes it more enjoyable. You don't want to have a hobby to sit there and get pissed off and fight it all the time. That's just no good. So that's why I like to keep them sharp, razor sharp. They have to be razor sharp, or it's just not very enjoyable to use them. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one tonight. We'll hopefully be back to the barn here pretty quick. I know we've had some in-between videos, but we do have to keep going. Though part of the reason for the slow uploads is that if I don't have something good to give you guys, I don't want to upload it. You know what I mean? It's got to be something for me to sit and make a video. I don't want to put out bullshit. You know, we're not after that here in this channel to keep our view counts up. View counts have dropped off because I haven't been uploading as much, but that's fine. I would rather put decent, informative stuff out there, and I think you would rather see decent, informative stuff than maybe a video of my dog taking a dump in the backyard. Maybe some of you are into that. Michael Wheaton, he's probably into that. I bet you he is. He's an odd one, that one, you know. He grew up in the town I went to school at. Then he decided to leave New York and become a wuss and live in the South, you know, from the North. Not that people in the South are wusses, but Michael, you left cold country to be warm. But another bird on my shoulder from down your way, he says you guys have had a cold winter. So, that's what you get, buddy. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.